It's time for the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. Stay tuned as we discuss what's happening in the world of local and national sports in Southeast Missouri and beyond. And welcome back to Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. I'm Mike Bueller.
I'm Mark Sanders.
And home of the worst NFL draft this year, I'm Kyle Roberts.
And guys, we are going to be talking a lot of NFL draft later on today, but we got a lot of stuff we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking some Cardinals baseball. We're going to be talking about the NBA and NHL playoffs. And we're hoping to have a local guest or two on as well. Still working on that. Hopefully they'll be in with us soon. But right now we are going to talk a little bit about the St. Louis Cardinals, who are off to a solid start. They're off to a better start than I expected, though it is still early. But they got a nice win. We were recording on Tuesday morning. They got a nice win on Monday night.
Yeah, I was really grateful to see them, number one, beat Pittsburgh on the road. Pittsburgh is a team that is ahead of them in the standings, ahead of them in run differential. And not just that, but they had come off a really tough three-game sweep at home against the Seattle Mariners. By sweep, I mean they got swept at home by the Mariners. I know the Mariners were Kyle's pick to win the World Series this year. They've underachieved at this point, but they definitely took advantage of the opportunity to improve their record in St. Louis, and that was also on the heels of losing 2 out of 3 on the road prior to that. So nice to see the Cardinals back in the winning column. Not just that, but the way that they did it, trailing going into the 9th inning and then being able to not only tie that up on a J.J. Weatherholt home run, but then being able to drive in 2 more runs. And what's most impressive is the fact that their closer did not poop his pants on the mound in the bottom of the 9th. So they secured a 4-2 win over the Pirates, are back on the winning column. My concern is that negative run differential. I read a thing a few days ago about Bill James, who's sort of like the father of baseball analytics. And his thing about run differential is that every 10 runs, either on the negative or the positive, results in a win or a loss. So like if your run differential is 0, you're a 500 team. If your run differential is plus 10, well, that counts for 1 game over 500. Well, the Cardinals are currently sitting at a negative 13 run differential, so they should be 1 game below 500. They're actually sitting at 2 over at 15 and 13. But that's really what I'm going to keep my eye on, is that run differential to gauge where they really are. Of course, standings has a lot to do with just luck and circumstance as well.
And Mark, what Mark's talking a little bit about reminds me a lot of, and maybe that may be actually called Pythagorean win-loss record, and that's the thing with the Cardinals. I looked it up, earlier when the Cardinals were like 15-9, and their Pythagorean win-loss, it was 14-9. Their Pythagorean win-loss, because of their run differential, was like 11-12, and that is the thing that's interesting. That's one reason why I'm not real confident this team is going to be able to sustain that, because they are winning in spite of the fact that they have a negative run differential. And I really think there's a good chance that, especially with them being a young team, that it is going to catch up to them. And I want to preface that by saying that I'm not saying that this is a horrible team with a horrible future. This is a young team, and if they do end up taking their lumps this year, they're still going to be all right in the future. I think this team's best days are ahead of it, even if they don't end up being this year. Kyle, I know you got something to say, so I'm going to let you dive in.
Yeah. See, I was really impressed with how we fought back in that game last night. Also, I saw a tweet that just tickled me, that this is, and it was off of the JJ home run that tied the game in the 9th. This is the worst JJ Weatherholt will ever be. And that's something to really, if you let that sink in, and he's got 6 home runs already. He's second on the team in home runs. If this is the worst this kid's going to be, we're going to be just fine. I would like to see us get more guys on in front, because in the Seattle series, we hit a lot of home runs, but we just could not hold leads. The bullpen, game 1 of that series gave me a backache. We used 8 pitchers and gave up 11 runs. That hurt my heart in ways I cannot fathom.
Yeah, that was
the only reliable guy we have out of the bullpen is our closer, Riley O'Brien, who leads the team in WAR, pitchers and hitters, and he's got a 1.26 ERA and 14 appearances with 7 saves. Despite the team having an ERA of 4.77, it's a slog to watch us pitch, but it's fun to watch the guys battle back. Also, Alec Burleson had this amazing bunt that rolled foul, then rolled back fair and stayed fair, that kept us in the ball game and allowed us to take the lead last night. I love little things like that in baseball. Like this is a team that, don't be surprised if they finished like a shade over 500, maybe 82, 83 wins. But at the end of the day, we're so young. Payroll is under $50 million, which, I mean, that's hard to fathom with the Cardinals in the current climate, but it's what we need to be.
Yeah, now, I think this is a team. I think this is a team that's going to be streaky. I think they're going to, they're going to follow up, a 4-game losing streak with winning 4 out of 6, or have a 5-game win streak and then lose the next 3 or 4 in a row. I do think at the end of the season, they're at best 4 or 5 games above 500. They're going to be miles away from 100 losses, though, Mike.
It's going to be interesting. One thing I do want to weigh in real quick, since we are taping on Tuesday, we just got the alert that the Phillies have fired their manager, Rob Thompson. And for the time being, Don Mattingly is going to manage the team. However, one reason I bring this up is before this happened, I was reading online, there were some rumblings that the leading candidate to replace Rob Thompson may be Alex Cora, who was just fired as the Red Sox manager. So that Cora may pull a Tony La Russa, because 40 years ago, the White Sox fired La Russa. And before, he had gotten even settled in, he was hired to manage Oakland in one of the biggest coups of Major League Baseball managerial hirings ever, and definitely of the 80s managerial hirings, because that was kind of when the Oakland A's really began to start making their move into becoming the power they were at the end of the decade, was when they hired La Russa. It kind of started in 86 with Canseco's rookie year, but right in the middle of that year, they hired La Russa and pulled Dave Stewart off the Philadelphia Phillies scrap heap, and 2 years later, they were playing for a championship.
I also have to say, Mike, don't you feel, speaking of those A's teams, they were underachievers? I genuinely believe that from, 88 to 92, they made it to the ALCS at minimum every year. That team should have been a dynasty.
That's a good possibility. I mean, they won 4 divisions in 5 years. They won 3 pennants, but only had 1 championship to show for it. They were kind of like the American League version of the 90s Atlanta Braves in that, aspect. The team that was winning it every year, but only had like 1 championship to show for it. But those 80s A's teams were fun to watch. I mean, I actually remember Dave Stewart's first start with the A's back in 86, as I'm showing my age. I was in junior high then. It was the summer after 7th grade, and they were playing the Boston Red Sox. I think it was right after the 4th of July, too. They were playing, this was the year the Red Sox won the pennant, but they were playing the Red Sox on Monday Night Baseball on ABC national television, and Dave Stewart, who they had just got off the Philadelphia Phillies scrap heap. I mean, everybody thought Stewart was washed up, and Oakland got him, and they started him against Roger Clemens, who was having possibly the best year of his career, won 24 games, won MVP, helped the Red Sox win a pennant. But he went up against Clemens, and he beat Clemens on national television. And that was a major turning point in the history of that franchise, because that's when people started to realize, hey, this bunch could be pretty good. And at the end of that season, they called up Mark McGuire. I think they also might have called up Terry Steinbach. And this team really began moving in some fun directions. That was a fun game to watch. It's still one of my favorite early baseball memories. Is why I'm gushing so much about it.
You know, the late '80s Oakland A's are like the mid '90s Atlanta Braves. They only have one World Series title. They should have won 3 or 4.
I just got me thinking of a future episode idea where we, like, during the summer, where we could just like wax poetic about dynasties that should have been. I'll throw in another one, even though they didn't win a championship. The mid to late '90s Cleveland Indians.
Yeah,
absolutely should have won in '97.
They really had some good teams.
Yeah, they had Clu Haywood and Pedro Serrano. Wait, that's the wrong Cleveland Indians. I couldn't resist.
Yeah, you couldn't resist.
Before we fall any further down this rabbit hole, speaking of championships, there are 2 other major men's sports that are in playoffs right now. So let's take a look at what the NBA playoffs bracket looks like as of today. Oklahoma City ousted the Suns. They move on to the conference semifinals. The Lakers lead the Rockets 3-1. Next game will be in Houston. Nuggets and Timberwolves. The Wolves are up 3-2. And
I worry about that series.
Oh, yeah, me too, because it's Minnesota and it's playoffs. So
it's not even that. It's the fact that all-star and all-NBA guard Anthony Edwards tore his meniscus in the same game that their best three-point shooter, Dante DiVincenzo, a.k.a. the Big Ragu, he tore his ACL and MCL in the same game that they won. However, for whatever reason, Nikola Jokic is getting neutralized by the immobile object known as Rudy Gobert. So that's what I just worry about.
The Wolves are not moving. The Wolves are not moving past the semifinals without Ant anyway. So I mean, it really doesn't make any difference. San Antonio, because they're not getting past Wemby and the Spurs without Anthony Edwards. The Spurs are up 3-1 on the Trailblazers. And I know it's an old nickname, but I cannot think about Portland's basketball team without calling them the Jailbreakers rather than the Trailblazers.
I heard about that Netflix documentary, and they left out so much, but it also revealed how bad of a light that the citizens of Portland were portraying this predominantly group of young black men that those types of young men they were not used to.
Right.
And smoking weed was that everyone made that out to be like the end of the world.
That's what it was. Yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was all about. And it's almost quaint to see, the moral standards of the 1980s and how much they've changed.
A bit of fun trivia about Portland. One of the guys on those early 2000 Trailblazers teams, I'm going on about 3 hours sleep, y'all, was Quintel Woods. And, Quintel Woods is a name that may be familiar if you're a fan of Raiders basketball, because 25 years ago, Quintel Woods played for the Moberly Greyhounds and lit the Raiders up a couple of times that season. And then he transferred after that season to Northeast Mississippi and played against us another year. So if you've been following Raider basketball long enough like I have, you remember Quintel Woods not just as a Portland Trailblazer, but as a Raider nemesis.
I also remember him as the guy who once got pulled over by the police and was asked to present his ID or his license or registration. Instead, he put out a basketball card of himself and said, "Do you know who I am?" That's what I remember. But back to our scores. Here's where I'm really concerned, and I was actually talking about this with my boss, who is a Celtics fan at the time of recording this morning as I was leaving my my tax-paying job. And we're very worried that the Detroit Pistons, who are the top seed in the East, are frauds.
They're on the ropes, guys.
Yeah, they're
losing to the Orlando Magic 94-88, and they're trailing 3-1 to a team that I think is the most talented bad team in the NBA.
Well, and
the Orlando Magic,
and they're facing an elimination game on the road. The next game 5 is going to be in Orlando. The rest of that Eastern Conference bracket, the Cavs and the Raptors are tied up 2-2.
That's a scrappy series.
Yeah, as are the Knicks and the Hawks.
Knicks are going to choke.
Don't they always? And then Boston leads Philadelphia 3-1. So not a whole lot, not a whole lot of tea leaves that are perfectly obvious. I think my one impression so far from the series is that LeBron James is a space alien. There is no reason why he should be playing the level of playoff play that he's playing at 41 years old.
41 years old. I mean, all of the mileage on his body.
I mean, he's putting that entire franchise on his shoulders and just running through the Houston Rockets. I don't think there's any way that he gets past the Thunder, but I mean, I think it's really time to have a serious discussion about how LeBron James has eclipsed Michael Jordan as the greatest basketball player of all time.
To continuously do what he's done and literally been a near 20-point triple-double since his rookie year, which I'd like to clarify was my sophomore year of high school.
Wow.
He was on a PlayStation 2 as an active NBA player, and he has not missed a season for, quote, retirements,
right,
a.k.a. suspensions for gambling and things of that nature. He has taken care of his body in ways that, you just don't see. You don't see athletes at his age looking like he does, moving like he does, and still playing at such a high level like he has been. Now, yes, he did have an old man game in Game 4. The Rockets got their lick back, and they avoided getting swept. And, he did not play well. He was 2-9 from the field. He scored 10 points and had 9 assists, and he did not play well. But keep in mind, he's carrying a roster without Luka Doncic.
Yeah.
Up again, and the Lakers are still up 3-1. But that also attributes to me the fact that if Kevin Durant's your number one option, you don't win a ring. This has been proven.
And as a Dallas Mavericks fan, I got to say it. Luka's hurt. Gosh, imagine that.
He's in better shape than he was with us. He was doughy, and I don't care how doughy he was. Put ball in hoop, very good at.
Yeah.
Which also on an aside, congratulations to Cooper Flagg on winning a 2026 Rookie of the Year.
Yes, indeed,
even though
Kyle.
I personally believe it should have gone to Con Canoopel of the Charlotte Hornets.
Kyle, you took the words out of my mouth on Cooper Flagg. It's always good to see a Dallas Maverick get an award, so that makes me happy. Mark?
He is the third Maverick to win Rookie of the Year. Luka and Jason Kidd was co-Rookie of the Year with Grant Hill in 1994.
That's right. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, before we close out this segment, let's take a quick look at the Stanley Cup playoffs. Most of the matchups are still in the first round. The top seeds in each conference have already advanced with 4-0 shutouts. The Avalanche dispatched of the Kings, and the Hurricanes took care of the Senators. Both of those were 4-0 sweeps. We have 3 matchups that are currently tied 2-2. The Dallas Stars and the Minnesota Wild in the West,
barn burner.
And the Vegas Golden Knights against my second favorite team name, the Utah Mammoth.
Cool colors, too.
Yeah.
That was an awesome Game 4 last night. Vegas was up 3-0. Utah came back, tied it at 3. The game went to overtime at 4, and Vegas won 5-4 to tie the series. There have been some fun, and also, yes, they do have very sweet unis, and I do like the logo. It does give Nashville Predators energy.
Yeah.
But the majority of that roster are old Arizona Coyotes, so shout out to our suspended franchise, not departed, suspended. Other series, I'm very happy to report that the Buffalo Sabres are about to dog walk the Boston Bruins in 5. They just destroyed them 6-1 in Game 4 in Boston, scoring 4 goals within the first 9 minutes of the game. Buffalo is ready. They have not won a playoff series in 19 years. I'm so ready for it. But if you have to ask me, the best first round series so far has been Tampa Bay and Montreal. The Canadiens have fought back. They won in overtime in Game 4. That's probably the hardest place to win in the NHL. Is Montreal in the spring. That's been a tremendous series. The Ottawa-Tampa series, Ottawa did not lead at all in that series. What they did lead in was punches thrown.
Yeah. Also, closing out the Eastern Conference, the Flyers lead the Penguins 3-2. I think that series goes to a Game 7. One other matchup in the West, Edmonton trails the Anaheim Ducks 3-1. That's a bit of a surprise.
Connor McDavid needs to get the hell out of Edmonton for sitting over the last 6 years.
That reminds me of something that happened in the past. A great player who needs to get the heck out of Edmonton. Who does that remind me of?
It's not the same, though. It's not the same as Gretzky.
No, but it is a shame that we have gone so long without, a really dominant Canadian team. I mean, even last year when Winnipeg won the President's Trophy, they made a very predictable early exit in the second round of the playoffs.
It's disheartening. Edmonton's lost back-to-back Stanley Cup finals. The last Canadian team that I genuinely thought had a shot to win the Stanley Cup was probably the 2011 Vancouver Canucks, who did blow it. They were up 2-0 on Boston and choked and lost in 7. It's disheartening. Edmonton, for years, since we're using them as an example, have always struggled with depth scoring outside of their superstars and bad goaltending. And they lost the last 2 finals to the Florida Panthers, who beat them with depth, size, and goaltending. And again, if I'm Connor McJesus, get out. If I'm Leon Draisaitl, get out. Anaheim is so bad defensively, but they are so good and fun. And what's also killing Edmonton is the lack of speed. Anaheim's a young team that is fast, and they can score, and they create a lot of chances. Similar to Montreal, who is my pick out of the Eastern Conference if Buffalo doesn't do it. Because and it's crazy to say, Cole Caulfield scored 50 goals this year for Montreal. In the history of that franchise, they've only had 4 players score 50 goals, which is just insane, considering the only franchise in sports that's won more championships than them is the New York Yankees. Yeah. But Connor McDavid, get out. I also want to give a congratulations and a farewell on a wonderful retirement to longtime Kings captain Anze Kopitar, who, upon the Avs sweeping the Kings, he ended his 20-year career, and he finished with 1,400 career points, 2 Stanley Cups. I think he won 3 Selke trophies as the league's best defensive forward. Quietly had an incredible career, and he was a Blues killer. Knocked the Blues out of the playoffs 2 times in 2 years in a row in 2012 and 13.
Hey, Kyle, on that note, we are going. Mark, you had something you want to say?
Well, I was just going to say, if you're wanting more basketball and hockey coverage, remember that these playoffs will not culminate into a championship until the early days of June. So we've got a whole month plus of playoffs to go. But when we come back on the sports desk, Mike is going to have some local coverage, and then later on in the show, we will give our deep dive into the recent NFL draft.
Here on the sports desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle.
This is Tony Webb, and you're listening to the sports desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle.
And we are back on the sports desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. I'm Mike Bueller, and I am joined now by Three Rivers men's basketball coach Robert Kirby and several of his sophomores who have made commitments to play at the 4-year level. Coach, first of all, I know you're excited to see your sophomores taking the next step in their college careers, and I will let you go from there.
Yes, Mike, I'm super excited for them to take the next step on their journey in life, and with basketball as well. It's always, they think of it as just basketball. I think it was just it's about life and where it takes them along the way. Each one of them is they're excited about the next opportunity, and I'm just thrilled to have them be able to reach those goals.
Good deal. And Coach, who do you have with you today?
We have Bryce Wallace, uh, Matt Hampton, Antonio Williams, and Johann Pautsch.
Good deal. And folks, I will just announce right now, Johann Pautsch is committed to play for the University of Southern Indiana in the OVC. He will be playing against SEMO next year. Matt Hampton is going to the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. Antonio Williams is going to Winston-Salem State in North Carolina. And Bryce is getting ready to announce where he is going right here on the sports desk. And Bryce, I'm going to start with you. Bryce, first of all, tell us about where you're headed.
I'm going to a Division II school called the University of Wisconsin Parkside, and it's actually in my hometown city, Kenosha.
Oh, good deal. I know that is a great opportunity for you. I know you're excited to not only get to be playing, basketball at 4-year level, but also getting to go back home. What's that like?
It's cool. It was like a perfect opportunity. They just signed a new head coach, and I reached out to him, and we just had a great conversation and clicked super fast. So I went on my visit a couple weeks ago. He offered me, and I just thought it was the best fit. And it close to home. My family gets to watch me, so I just thought it was the best to commit.
Good deal, Bryce. I am really excited for you, man. Congratulations, and head back north and do some great things.
Thank you.
And I'm going to jump now to Antonio Williams. Antonio, you are headed to Winston-Salem State in North Carolina, right in the heart of North Carolina. That seems like a really nice destination for you. Congratulations, and I will let you go from there.
Can you ask that again?
Antonio, you are headed to Winston-Salem State, North Carolina. That's right in the heart of the state, a really nice area, a really nice school. Seems like a really good fit for you, and I'll let you go from there.
Oh yeah, we just received a new head coach. In his last season, he was 25-6, and a couple years ago, a year or two ago, he was coach of the year. And I feel like it was the best fit for me and where I was wanted most. And, it's one of the best Division twos, HBCUs in the state of North Carolina, and I just feel like it was the best fit for me, and I think I thrive on and off the court there.
Good deal. You've been one of the big parts of what I call the Raider Renaissance. This is the best 2-year stretch we've had in almost a decade. A stretch that saw us get back to Hutch, that saw us playing for the region championship 2 years in a row, that saw us winning 20 games 2 years in a row. What's it like having been part of that?
It's a big deal, because over the last few years, they had some downs. So I feel like to be a part of something that we did here 2 years, we just gotta give big thanks to our coach and the players that we have and what he did for us. And I think we put on for the fans, and I hope they continue to do that.
Good deal. Hopping along, Johann. Johann, you are headed to the University of Southern Indiana in Evansville. Like I said earlier, that seems like a great fit for you. You're headed to Division I Ohio Valley Conference. How do you feel?
Yeah, I'm super excited for the opportunity. Like you said, it's not too far away from here. It's only 3.5 hours. So, yeah, we'll play SEMO next year. I'm super excited. I like the school. I like the program, and I think we can do big things next year. So I'm really excited for that.
Good deal. And like I said to Antonio, you were another big part of the Raider Renaissance, getting to see the program get back, to being one of the top contenders in Region 16. What's that been like?
Kind of like what Antonio said, like it's of course like we put the work in, we worked really hard for it, especially last year, like putting up the banner, winning the region, going to Hutch, like that's big. That was big for us, for Poplar Bluff, for the community. We were really proud of it, and I'm glad to be part of that.
Indeed, congratulations. You guys have all been a big part of it. Really excited to see you succeeding. Last but not least, Matt, congratulations. I mean, you're another one that's been a big part of the Raider Renaissance. You're only the second 2-time All-American we've had in men's basketball here. just an amazing career, region player of the year. So many great things have happened. What's that been like?
It's been great. Just getting in the gym, working on my teammates every day. It's been a blessing.
Good deal. And Matt, you are headed to University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. Another good school, a Division I school. You're headed to a good town. Chattanooga is a really nice area. I mean, you're right in or near the Smoky Mountains. You not only get to go play for a nice team, you get to go to school in a nice area. Tell me about that.
That's also a blessing. Not just to be able to play Division One basketball, but to play for a great program like that. So I'm extremely blessed and I'm excited.
Sounds great. And guys, that is Three Rivers men's basketball coach Robert Kirby and Raiders basketball sophomores Matt Hampton, Johann Pautsch, Antonio Williams, and Bryce Wallace, all headed to the 4-year level. And we will be back here on the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle.
This is Three Rivers men's basketball coach Robert Kirby, and you are listening to the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle.
And welcome back to the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. We are getting ready to do our deep dive into the recently completed NFL draft. And I'm going to lead off talking about my Tennessee Titans since we got to pick first of our 3 teams. And frankly, I think we had a pretty good draft. There were some people that were very mixed about our first round pick at number 4.
Why would people be mixed about that? It's an Ohio State receiver. He was WR1 in everyone's big board. I don't understand the complaints.
Really, I don't get it.
Some fans like to complain. Colin, you got a couple thoughts on that. Let me say this real quick. Some people griped because Carnell Tate was the number 2 wide receiver at Ohio State behind Jeremiah Smith, who could go number 1 overall next year. But Justin Jefferson was wide receiver 2 at LSU when they won it all in 2019, and we know how he's turned out. Plus, as Mark said, Ohio State wide receivers do have a very good track record in the league. Kyle, what were you going to say?
Basically that, and you said this before, so I'll reiterate it for the audience. Carnell Tate on 98% of FBS rosters is your wide receiver 1, and it's not up for debate. Yeah. So again, what are the complaints here?
Because fans, a lot of times, they love to complain. However, if you look at the rest of our draft, there really ain't too much to complain about. We traded back into the first round and took Keldrick Falk, edge rusher, which with the Titans being a 4-3, a defensive end from Auburn that I think is a nice pickup for us. That's a guy that, if people think we drafted Carnell Tate a little higher than we should have, Falk fell to us at 31. And then at number 60, we traded back into the second round after trading our own second rounder to move up and take Falk and got Anthony Hill Jr., linebacker from Texas.
Great pick.
Yes, I think so too. We did not have a pick in the 3rd and 4th rounds because of all the trade ups, but we made up for it by getting some great picks on the back end. In the 5th round, we took Fernando Carmona from the University of Arkansas. We took later in that round Nicholas Singleton, a really nice running back from Penn State.
Very slept on pick.
Yeah, he fell because he's coming into the year injured. But if he gets healthy again, you guys are going to have a star in the backfield.
We very well could. In the 6th round at 184, we took Jackie Marshall, a defensive tackle from Baylor. 10 picks later, we took Pat Coogan, the center for the Indiana Hoosiers, who snapped the ball to number 1 overall draft pick Fernando Mendoza. Then in the 7th round, we wrapped up our draft by taking Jaron Kanak, I think that's how you pronounce his name, tight end for the University of Oklahoma. My thoughts on our draft, I think we did really good. I'm going to preface this by saying you can't really grade a draft until a few years later. This is all speculation right now, but it's fun speculation, which is why we're doing it. But here's my thoughts. I like Carnell Tate. We need a top gun wide receiver to throw the ball, for Cam Ward to throw the ball to. When the Cardinals took Jeremiah Love off the board at number 3, that, made him a logical pick. So we took him. Keldrick Falk helps our edge rush. He may be a little bit raw, but I think he's going to help us. Robert Saleh loves rotating people up front. And if you look at how the 49ers have done on defense, you can see that it's paid off. Anthony Hill is probably going to be starting at middle linebacker for us this year, or at least at one of the linebackers.
He's a stud. You're going to love him on your defense.
I can't believe he fell.
Yeah.
Well, linebackers were, after Sonny Styles in the first round, linebackers were, they were like a discount value in this year's draft.
Yeah. Fernando Carmona.
I don't know anything about him. He's a fifth round guard.
He was a former All-SEC center, but he's very versatile. He projects as a guard in the NFL, but he can play center, and he was really, really good. Honestly, he was the only offensive lineman that really pulled weight last year for the Razorbacks.
There's a chance that Carmona is going to start for the Titans next season. I've heard he could start at guard. I've heard he could start at center.
Well, you definitely need help on the offensive line. I'm actually, if I have any criticisms of the Titans draft, it's the fact that you only took one offensive lineman.
Well, we took two. We took Pat Coogan in the 6th round.
Oh well, right. Yeah, but center's center. I mean, center's kind of different. You guys should have at least taken a tackle for depth.
Well, we actually signed a really good undrafted free agent tackle that I really like. I'll get to him in a minute. But, speaking of Pat Coogan, who we took in the 6th round, Coogan's another late round pick that could start for us next season. I've been hearing buzz. Coogan could end up being our starting center. Carmona could end up being our starting right guard. We don't know yet, but these are both really intriguing picks. Jackie Marshall and Jaron Kanak, I don't know as much about, but I really think we had a good draft. I know that among our undrafted free agent class, we signed a tackle out of Notre Dame that I really like. Kyle, you know more about him, I'm assuming.
I don't really have anything. I don't have your draft pulled up right now, or your undrafted free agent signings. I can though. Just give me a minute.
He played tackle for Notre Dame. He was a pretty good sized guy. Did some nice things. I mean, I think we're in good shape. And the thing is, with this team, we have so many needs that we probably weren't going to be able to address every single need this draft. But the thing is, I feel like between the draft and free agency, we have gotten better. I think this team's going to be a little more fun to watch next season, and it's been the last couple of years, which has been an absolute train wreck.
Yeah. I think the only way you could have done better with your draft, and I like the Tate pick, I think the only thing that you could have done differently would be to trade down for like an extra second, an extra third. I think Coogan might eventually start. I mean, there's a reason why he didn't go until the end of the 6th round. He's a journeyman. He doesn't really stand out though in terms of his size or his skills, despite the strength of his career with Indiana.
You never know.
I'm not sure how much of it, but overall, I think it's a B plus draft. I mean, your top of the board, Tate, Falk, Hill, and Singleton. I mean, those are all instant contributors. And if Carmona and Coogan fit in the starting lineup, then it has even more value. So I think that turned out really good for you.
We've got 4 or 5 guys out of this draft that could be starting this fall. I'm not saying they will, but I'm saying they could, and that would be really nice. Which one of you guys want to go next?
Well, I think we should go. You were happy with your draft. We all know that. That Mr. Rams fan was not at all happy with his draft. In fact, I don't think anyone was happy with the decisions that Les Snead made over the weekend.
I don't know. Outside of Jared Goff, I don't know in my lifetime that the Rams have made a quarterback draft selection that I was genuinely happy with. Tony Banks, Sam Bradford, Jared Goff. We did draft Ryan Fitzpatrick, so there's that.
Don't forget Tony Banks.
2005.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Drinking 13th pick, and I'm geeked up. And by the way, y'all, you can check out if you want to see my reaction that Sandman thought was just the greatest thing he's ever seen in his life. Go to the Sports Historian YouTube channel and just find my watch along from night one. I timestamped it in the comments, so you can go and see me crash out. Ty Simpson, 13th pick. He was a late first round, early second round projection. I genuinely thought the Arizona Cardinals would trade back in to get him. I really did.
And they might have. They might have. I think if he had still been available at 21, I figured that Pittsburgh would take him. But I mean, here's the thing. Put aside his draft ranking. Put aside the fact that he's an Alabama quarterback.
And there are rules.
Yes. Put aside the fact that towards the end of the season, when you watched him play, you just looked at him and said, "No, that's not an NFL quarterback." I mean, you didn't need a quarterback. You've got Matt Stafford. You absolutely did not need to draft a quarterback.
That was my problem. I had the blueprint. I could have been Les Snead that night for that weekend. Give me a salary, too. I could have done all that. Pick 13. Address the lack of depth at wide receiver. Yeah, we lost Tutu Atwell to Miami, so we lose a slot guy. Go get a future potential number one and an explosive slot guy and draft Mekhi Lemon. I had it right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get Mekhi Lemon, which, by the way, it's ridiculous. He fell to the Eagles at 20, and I'm mad that he went there.
Of course.
Jesus weeps.
You're not nearly as mad. You're not nearly as mad as the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are in the process of writing Lemon's name out on their draft card when Howie Roseman came up and sniped him right out.
Howie Roseman is a demon for that. Dude, but again, the issue is we did not need. We don't have many glaring needs, but I just feel that addressing some depth, we were genuinely in the position to take best available at 13,
yes,
which is a spot very few teams are afforded in the first round. And we were very fortunate to have the pick that we got from Atlanta, which, I'm very grateful, but I feel like we just wasted it. And again, it's not a knock on Ty's talent. There are things that you have to isolate when looking at his game. Alabama had 30 dropped passes on him last year by Alabama wide receivers. He didn't have the greatest receiving core to work with. He had no running game to work with. But still, name an Alabama quarterback, and at least in my lifetime, that was a guy you could build your franchise around.
And he doesn't. You look at his measurables. You think, well, is there something here that would make him, really attractive? No, I mean, he's 6'2", 208, so he's not big. He's not fast. He doesn't have a particular. I mean, his arm's okay, but I mean, it's not like what you're looking for in what you would describe as a big-armed quarterback. I mean, it just. I can't see the thought process here at all.
I would have traded the pick. I would if you're going to take him and you're not going to take the best available, trade the pick.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on your other four choices? Max Clare, tight end from Ohio State. That's fine for a late second round pick.
I like him, but we just drafted Terrence Ferguson in the second round last year as a tight end. We run a lot of 13 personnel. I get that, but we've already got Tyler Higbee for that.
It looks like the entire draft, all 5 picks, were just picking for depth instead of looking for starters.
I'm fine with that, but Claire, I didn't understand the pick. I like him as a prospect. His numbers don't jump because he was at Ohio State. He was more productive at Purdue. He's likely to get, to be a special teamer right now just because we have so many tight ends. No, my favorite pick of the draft was pick number 93, which is Keegan Trost, the tackle from Missouri, who absolutely jumped off a tape last year on a very, very good Missouri offensive line with him, Caden Green, and Connor Tollison, who signed an undrafted free agent, and Caden Green's going to be a first round pick next year. But he graded out as one of the 5 best pass blockers in the nation last year, according to Pro Football Focus. So I thought that was a very, very good pick, and I do like C.J. Daniels in the 6th round. This was a good receiving draft for wide receivers, but I wanted my guy in the 1st.
Yeah.
Could have got Omar Cooper out of Indiana. I would have liked to have moved up and maybe got an Elijah Surratt out of Indiana, who catches everything.
Well,
so I give us a C.
Yeah, I graded you guys a lot worse than that. Now I'll get to
Fair.
that. I'll get to that in a minute. But I mean, yeah, you would have gotten a lot more value if you could have traded out of that 13th spot for like an additional like a 2nd and a 4th, or a 2nd and a 5th, because you didn't.
I would have wanted
a
first rounder for next year.
Yeah, even that would have been better, because even if you say, well, Matt Stafford is old, and what if he gets hurt? Fine, he gets hurt. You finish with 3 or 4 wins, and then you draft Arch Manning to play in L.A. for the next 15 years.
Yes, and next year's draft class is where your quarterbacks are.
Absolutely.
If he declares your Arch Mannings, but your Lenora Sellers, your Trinidad Chamblises, your Dante Moores, there are dudes in next year's draft that you could have waited on.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, a player that the Minnesota Vikings decided not to wait on was defensive tackle Caleb Banks from Florida, a genuine physical freak who came into the draft with a lot of questions concerning his health, specifically the health of his foot, which has been injured twice in the past year. I will point out the fact that Banks, at 6'6" and 330 pounds, ran a 5-second 40-yard dash with a broken bone in his foot. Yeah, it's absolutely insane. Now, everybody on the internet freaked out with this pick. But as I thought about, and by the way, if you want to see my full breakdown of all of the Vikings draft picks, you can go to my blog, sandmansports.blogspot.com. It's the Sandlot, and you can see this. I'm not going to just read this out loud. I give the Banks pick a C, and it is a total risk reward pick. I thought about just giving it a grade of incomplete, because if Banks is healthy, he is a game wrecking difference maker. I mean, he is. He's been described as unblockable, unstoppable, and if he fulfills that potential and can stay healthy in that Brian Flores defense, then he's probably a top 10 worthy pick that the Vikings get at a bonus of 18. What it comes down for me is this: I think this was the Vikings' thought process. We can risk taking him and him being a failure, not working out, not staying healthy, essentially. We could take the risk of taking him and failing, or we can play it safe and not take him, or hopefully wait until the 2nd round and maybe he'll still be available or something like that. But somebody else takes him and he turns out to be a star. That's what I think the Vikings were doing their risk analysis, is what would make us more unhappy, that we take him and he doesn't work out for us, or that we don't take him and he works out for someone else who we could have had. And I think the someone else very might well have been the Chicago Bears at 25, because who did the Bears take? Dylan Thieneman, the safety who everyone was mocking to the Vikings. So what if the Vikings had taken Thieneman and the Bears take Banks and he turns into a star and he's in the Minnesota backfield twice a year, for the next 7 or 8 years, or how long. So I think it's a calculated risk. Again, nobody's going to like this pick until Banks starts disrupting opposing quarterbacks. I liked Jake Golday, the linebacker out of Cincinnati. He was on my big board. My favorite pick of the weekend was Big Citrus, Dominique Orange
Oh, you geeked out over that.
Oh, yeah, our big nose tackle coming in as 9'3". I think Caleb Tiernan, the tackle from Northwestern, gives us nice depth and an injury insurance policy for Brian O'Neill and Christian Darrisaw. I'm really looking forward to see if Jacoby Thomas, the safety out of Miami, turns out to be.
Mark, your mic. We got technical difficulty. Mark's mic is off.
Oh, okay. I wonder if I've been getting picked up here. I thought the battery died.
You did.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to give that to you. Please pause for technical difficulties. I'm loud enough. I'm sure it was getting picked up by y'all's lapels. And if not, I'm just talking about the Vikings, right? Jacoby Thomas, ball-hawking, hard-hitting safety out of Miami. And he opened a lot of eyes with Miami's run at a national championship. We'll just have to see if he can keep it up. Fullback Max Bredesen out of Michigan taking over the C.J. Ham role. I think one of the most interesting players in the Vikings draft is Chuck Demings, a cornerback from Division II Stephen F. Austin, but he has all of the physical traits that Brian Flores looks at in a cornerback. 4.4 speed, a 42-inch vertical jump, and an absolutely insane 11-foot broad jump.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. So, and he's almost 6'2", and he's got a wingspan in excess of 70 inches. Damon Claiborne is the running back that the Vikings had their eye on all along. They traded away their sixth-round pick at 198, and then traded back for that same pick to take Claiborne. There's two things that Claiborne has: a very quick and elusive change of direction followed by immediate acceleration. He has 4.37 40-yard speed. We'll have to see whether his size is a detriment. He's only 5'9", 188 pounds. I think they're going to get him in the weight room on a steady diet of protein powder to bulk up with that. But Claiborne may be the home run hitter at running back that the Vikings have lacked since Dalvin Cook's prime. A round 7 pick, I think, was a bit of a stretch. Gavin Gerhardt, a center from Cincinnati. Don't really know a whole lot about him. I think they were probably just looking for someone to compete with Michael Juergens as the backup center. I think it's pretty obvious that they like Blake Brandel at that position. Brandel was their swing guard who filled in at center for the injured Ryan Kelly. And even though he had never played center before in his career, he availed himself well enough that I think the Vikings are putting him in that starting spot. So when I averaged out all the grades by number, I came up with a B-, and I think that is a fair grade for what the Vikings did. You know, it's a solid and competent pick, but it's not going to excite anybody. But after 4 years of failure, I think if we get 4 or 5 starting players out of this draft, it's been a success.
Indeed. And Mark, I know you've got some general draft analysis you want to do, and I'm going to let you do that real quick.
Okay. Looks like our microphones are dying off here because Mike is double teaming on Kyle's microphone. So yeah, let me run through it. I think the top 3 drafts, in my estimation, I think the Miami Dolphins had the best overall draft. They had a ton of picks. They got Jacob Rodriguez, who I think is the best linebacker in the class.
He should have been a first rounder.
Yeah. They took 2 really skilled safeties in Kyle Lewis and Michael Taft. They drafted Kevin Coleman Jr., wide receiver out of Missouri. He's going to be great for them. They got a couple of tight ends. They got Chris Johnson from San Diego State at cornerback with their second first-round pick. He may actually turn out to be the best cornerback in this class. I think their picks were just outstanding all the way through. The Dolphins are not going to be a good team, but I think that they're laying the foundation for success. My second favorite draft was the Pittsburgh Steelers. They got a big tackle out of Arizona State to start off with, Jeremy Bernard, wide receiver. I liked the Drew Aller pick. I think he's probably the most pro-ready of all of the second and third tier quarterbacks. I think that you might see him start the second half of the season for the Steelers. Dalen Everett, quarterback out of Georgia. Jennings Dunker, the huge tackle out of Iowa. He's just a monster.
Good pick.
Yeah. Kyle, a favorite pick of yours?
Yes, because listen, Iowa offensive lineman, mullet, manly mustache. He throws bales for competitive purposes.
Yeah.
Give him a gold jacket.
Caden Weechin, the wide receiver out of Iowa, who's the best kick returner in the draft. He's going to make a real difference on special teams. A couple of utility players who will be big fullbacks coming out of the Steelers' backfield. Riley Nowakowski, the Indiana tight end, and
loved him at Indiana.
Probably my favorite late round pick. I'm surprised he lasted this long, but it was the Steelers who took Eli Heidenreich from Navy. Who can play tight end, he can play fullback, he can catch and run the ball. I'm really going to keep an eye on him. And then Tampa Bay, I think, just transformed their defense, which was their Achilles heel, especially late in the season. They took the best edge rusher in the draft. He's going to show you on the field. He's my early pick for Defensive Rookie of the Year in Ruben Bain Jr. out of Miami. Josiah Trotter, the big linebacker from Missouri. They got the best big wide receiver available in Ted Hurst from Georgia State. Keontae Scott's a good nickel cornerback from Miami. One of my favorite prospects at defensive tackle, Clemson's DeMonte Capehart, who had a relative athletic score of 9.99. He's a big guy who can run like a tight end. Don't know much about their late two picks, but it doesn't matter at that point. The Buccaneers had already accomplished quite a bit.
So, Mark, I just want to just jump in real quick on the Bucs. So you're going to tell me this team just gave Vita Vea Ruben Bain Jr.
I know, right?
Oh, my Lord. No one has did that not register to anybody? And also, Josiah Trotter is going to go on to have an excellent career. His brother, Jeremiah Jr., plays for the Eagles. Of course, their dad was a great linebacker with the Eagles in Washington for a lot of years. But again, Ruben Bain Jr. and Vita Vea is horrifying.
I know, it's sickening.
Mark, you're talking about teams that had great drafts. Here are some teams that laid eggs.
The Texans. I don't see that the Texans did anything to help their team. Their first round pick was Keelan Rutledge, a guard out of Georgia Tech, who is at best a second round prospect. Caden McDonald, the big defensive tackle out of Ohio State. I mean, he's going to help with your run defense, but there were better defensive tackles available. Marlon Klein. You probably could have had him in the third round. You probably could have traded down that pick. And then it is a parade of unknowns. Fabichi Kwaiwu, a guard out of Oklahoma. Wade Woodaz, Clemson linebacker. Kamari Ramsey, safety out of USC, fell all the way into the fifth round. And then their 6th and 7th round picks, I'm just scratching my head. Lewis Bond, wide receiver from Boston College, and then Aiden Fisher, Indiana linebacker.
I loved Aiden Fisher. He was the heart and soul of their defense last year.
Well, I mean, maybe, but I mean, why did he drop into the 7th round?
That is something I do question. But with Houston, going D tackle in the 2nd round, I'm like, you have no holes on your defense. You have the best defense in football. Fix the offensive line.
Right. Well, and yes, they drafted a couple of guards, but the interior of their line was not their biggest problem. I don't understand why they didn't take an offensive tackle.
I don't get it. Why are the Houston Texans always allergic to pass protection?
I don't know, which is obviously that is their biggest problem. All right, we're gonna have to wrap this up because Kyle's microphone is now flashing red also. Yeah. So all of our batteries are dying. I'm gonna say we've already talked about the Rams. They were They were also listed as one of my lowest picks on this. But the worst for me were the Commanders. They took Sonny Styles as the 7th pick, and that was great. I don't like any of the rest of their picks. I mean, I don't think they did anything to help their team. And they drafted a Rutgers quarterback in the 7th round.
Anthon Kaliak-Manis.
Yeah. I mean, why? I mean, I guess it might look good on the back of a jersey, but I don't know. I didn't think the Commanders moved the needle for their team in any way. But like Mike said at the opening of the show, you know, these grades are nothing more than informed opinions. We won't really know anything about these draft classes until we fit them on. Very quickly, Kyle, some final words coming out of the draft.
I also got to give big credit. The Browns and Jets had excellent drafts. I feel like that's not allowed to happen, both of them at the same time. But the Jets had 3 first-round picks, oddly 14 picks apart at 2, 16, and 30, and they crushed it.
Yeah,
I got to give credit there. Cleveland made an interesting pick in taking Taylor Green, the hyper-athletic big quarterback from Arkansas. I genuinely think they drafted him to move him to wide receiver.
That would be a really good idea.
Well, in the vein of Terrell Pryor.
And on that note, guys, we're gonna wrap it up before we lose our mics. We're down to our last mic. Batteries didn't last as long as they should have. Long story, but on that note, I'm Mike Bueller.
I'm Mark Sanders.
And this is Kyle Roberts.
And you've been listening to the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle.